The forests of Kosala had grown unusually quiet that year. Cattle herders drove their animals home before the sun reached its midpoint. Farmers left their fields before the light began to tilt. At night, something moved through the trees, not quite wind, not quite animal, and by morning, somewhere along the roads, a body would be found with one finger missing. Everyone knew the name. No one would say it aloud. Angulimala, the one who wears a garland of fingers. He sat on a rock deep in the forest, drawing the necklace slowly through his fingers. The old ones were stiff and dry on the cord. The newer ones still held color. He counted from the beginning, 100, 200, 300. Past 500, the counting lost its meaning, but he could not stop. The feeling of closing in on something was the only thing still holding him together. His teacher had told him, when you reach 1,000, you will be free. He had not always been this. At Taxila, under a celebrated Brahmin master, the boy named Ahisaka, the harmless one, a name his father chose to outrun a dark horoscope, had been the teacher's favorite. He was given the nearest seat, taught first, and forgot nothing. The other students grew bitter and went to the teacher with whispers. Ahisaka had seduced the master's wife. Ahisaka boasted he surpassed the master. The teacher's eyes changed. Ahisaka studied harder, bowed lower, and would have done anything to restore what had been lost. The teacher knew that. On the final day, the teacher said the traditional parting gift was required. Ahisaka lowered his head and said, "Name it." The teacher said, "Bring me 1,000 fingers, each from a different person." Ahisaka looked up and searched for mercy in that face. There was none. He was silent a long time. Then he said, "As you wish." The first man was a trader walking alone. Ahisaka hid and watched him, hand sweating on the knife. This man has done nothing. This man is only walking. Then the teacher's voice, 1,000. He stepped out. He tried not to remember what followed. One finger on a cord. By the next day, his hand no longer trembled, and that frightened him more than the trembling had. Groups of 10 came to find him, then 30, then 40. None returned. The roads around the forest emptied. Villages bolted their doors before dusk. 999 fingers on the cord. One remained. That same morning, a woman named Mantani laced up her sandals, wrapped some food in a cloth, and started walking up the mountain road alone. She was not a young woman. Her back had begun to bend from years of hard work. Her hands were rough, and her eyes were not as sharp as they once were. But the look in those eyes did not waver. Her neighbors told her not to go. Her husband told her not to go. She looked at them and said simply that her son might be hungry. She knew what her son had done. Every night the rumors came through the walls of her house. She heard all of it. And still, as she climbed, she thought about the boy who had laughed out loud the first time he read a letter. The boy whose eyes had lit up when he recited scripture in front of his teacher. There had to be a reason he had become this person. She did not know if that thought was right. She only knew she could not stop walking. Her feet hurt, the years hurt, she kept going. Up on the hill, Angulimala heard someone coming. He stepped behind a tree and watched one person, a woman, old. He looked carefully. Then something locked up tight inside his chest. It was his mother. He knew her walk. He knew the cloth she used to wrap food and the way she tied the knot. She had brought him a meal. She was climbing toward him because she thought her child might be hungry. He had killed 999 so far. Only one left. One to finally accomplish his teacher's wish. And his mother had just shown up to become the 1,000th victim. He grabbed his knife. His hand was shaking. It had not shaken since the very first time he killed someone. He had cut down groups of 20 and 30 men, and his hand had stayed still. But now, in front of this one old woman, climbing with food in her arms, his hand would not stop. He told himself to stop thinking. He held his breath. He stepped forward. Down on the road below, a monk was walking. Alone. No one with him. He carried a bowl and walked at a calm, steady pace, as if he had nothing to fear in the world. Angulimala's eyes moved toward the monk. The foot he had been moving toward his mother went still. That morning in Savatthi, the Buddha finished his walk for alms and sat quietly with his bowl. He closed his eyes. With his divine sight, he could see far beyond what normal eyes could see. He saw a man in the forests of Kosala sitting on a rock, counting fingers on a necklace. 999. On the road below, an old woman was climbing alone, carrying food wrapped in cloth. The Buddha opened his eyes. If the mother reached her son first, the son would make her his 1000th victim. Killing one's own mother is one of the heaviest wrongs a person can commit. But if the Buddha went instead, things could be different. He picked up his robe and bowl and walked toward the forest. Near the road, a cattle herder ran up to him. The canon records what the man said, "Please, monk, do not take this road. On this road, there is a bandit named Angulimala. He is cruel and has blood on his hands. He kills without mercy. He wears people's fingers as a garland. Groups of 10, 20, 30, and 40 people have gone down this road, and not one came back alive." The Buddha walked on without a word. A farmer said the same, then a shepherd. 3 people warned him. The Buddha gave all 3 the same answer: silence and steady steps forward. Angulimala saw the monk coming alone below and forgot about his mother. He picked up his sword, shield, bow, and arrows and followed. He could not catch up. He walked faster. The gap did not close. He ran as hard as he could, lungs burning, feet pounding the ground. The gap still did not close. He had chased down elephants, horses, and deer, and not one had ever gotten away. But this monk, who was only walking, could not be caught. He stopped. His chest heaved. The monk was still just as far away, walking at the same calm pace. Angulimala shouted,
"Stop, monk, stop!"
The Buddha spoke without turning around.
"I have stopped, Angulimala. Now, you stop."
With those words in the air. Everyone said that followers of the Sakyan clan always spoke truth. But this monk had said he had stopped while still walking. He did not understand it. But something in those words had touched a place inside him that had not been touched in a very long time. He called out,
"While walking, monk, you say you have stopped. I have stopped, yet you say I have not. How have you stopped, and how have I not?"
The Buddha turned around. Angulimala saw his face for the first time. There was no fear in it, no anger, no judgment, just stillness. He had not seen a face like that since he left school. The Buddha spoke.
"I have stopped, Angulimala, for good, because I have put down all violence toward every living being, but you have not stopped hurting living beings. That is how I have stopped, and you have not. Cast off violence. Put it down."
The words moved through Angulimala slowly. He had believed that killing 1,000 people would set him free. He had taken 999. He was 1 away. And now this monk was telling him that freedom was not at the end of a count. It was in the putting down. He had been putting down the wrong thing all along. Something that had been wound tight inside him for a very long time began to loosen. His voice came out shaking. "At long last, a greatly respected teacher has come to this great forest for my sake. Having heard your teaching, I will leave evil behind and live differently." He walked to the edge of the cliff and did not slow down. His sword went over, his shield, his bow and arrows followed, spinning in the air before disappearing into the deep chasm below. The sound of metal hitting rock came up once and then was gone. He came back to where the Buddha stood and knelt down. He pressed his forehead to the ground at the Buddha's feet and stayed there a long time. The necklace touched the dirt. 999 fingers. Without lifting his head, he said, "Please let me become a monk." The Buddha said, "Ehi bhikkhu, come monk." That was all. Those 2 words were the full ordination. The robe, the razor, the vow, all in 2 words. A new life had begun. Not a Hisaka, who had studied and trusted and been betrayed. Not Angulimala, who had killed and counted and nearly killed his own mother. Someone new, standing in the forest with a necklace of 999 fingers still around his neck. They walked together toward Savatthi. The Buddha went ahead. The new monk followed, for the first time following, without trying to close the gap. The trees thinned. People working in the field saw them coming and froze. A woman grabbed her child. A man stepped back. When they recognized the second face, some of them ran. The monk watched and kept walking. He did not look away. A crowd had already gathered at the palace gates, voices loud and angry. There is a killer in our kingdom named Angulimala. He is cruel, with blood on his hands. He has destroyed whole villages. You must stop him, your majesty. King Pasenadi rode out with around 500 soldiers to Jeddah's grove. He got down from his horse, walked in on foot, bowed to the Buddha, and sat down. The Buddha asked,
What is it, great king? Has another king threatened you?
No, Lord. There is a killer in my kingdom named Angulimala, cruel, merciless to living beings. He has turned villages into non-villages, towns into non-towns. I am going to stop him.
The Buddha said,
Great king, what if you saw Angulimala with his head shaved, wearing the orange robe of a monk, living without killing, without stealing, without lying, eating only one meal a day, living cleanly and carefully? What would you do?
The king thought for a moment.
We would bow to him, Lord. We would give him a seat and offer him robes, food, a place to stay, and medicine. But how could a man, that evil, ever live that way?
The Buddha said nothing. He raised his right arm and pointed.
That is Angulimala.
The king looked where the Buddha pointed. Sitting quietly nearby was a monk in an orange robe, head shaved, eyes down, the broad shoulders, the thick arms. There was no mistaking who it was. Fear shot through the king's whole body. Every hair on his skin stood up. His hand moved toward his sword. The Buddha said quietly,
Do not be afraid, great king. He will not hurt you.
The fear slowly left. The king's hand dropped. He walked over and stood in front of the monk. Are you really Angulimala? The monk looked up.
Yes, great king.
What is your father's family name? Your mother's?
My father is from the Gaga family. My mother's name is Mantani. The king was quiet a moment. He remembered the boy, the son of a royal priest, born on a night when weapons across the city had glowed. He said,
Then please, Gagamantani Puta, stay and rest. I will provide robes, food, lodging, and medicine.
The monk answered calmly.
That is enough, great king. My robe is already complete.
The king turned back to the Buddha and said,
It is amazing, Lord, truly amazing. What we could not tame with weapons, the Buddha has tamed without any weapon at all.
He bowed, stood, and left. He rode back to the city. There was no longer any killer to hunt. The mornings in Savatthi were busy and loud. Vendors set up their stalls in the narrow streets, women gathered at the wells, and children ran through the alleys. Every morning, Venerable Angulimala walked through it all in his orange robe, holding his bowl, his head shaved, his eyes down. Some people did not recognize him at first, but then one man stopped walking. He studied the face, the shoulders, the build. He stepped back and shouted, It's Angulimala! The street went quiet. A woman pulled her child close. Then someone picked up a roof tile from the ground and threw it. The tile hit his shoulder. A stick hit his back. A clod of dirt hit his head. Blood ran down his face. His bowl was knocked from his hands and broke on the ground. More people came, shouting. He did not move. He did not raise his arms. He just stood there until it was over. Then he turned and walked back to the monastery, head bleeding, robe torn, carrying the broken bowl. The Buddha saw him coming from far away. When Angulimala reached him, the Buddha said,
Endure it, Brahman. Endure it. You are feeling right now, in this life, the results of actions that could have kept you in hell for hundreds and thousands of years.
Angulimala heard this and went still, hundreds of thousands of years in hell, arriving instead as a broken head and a smashed bowl in Savatthi. He looked at his hands and said, I will endure it, Lord. He went back the next morning and the morning after that. Some days, doors stayed shut. Some days, food came. He walked the same streets without rushing, without flinching, without asking for anything. The necklace was still around his neck. 999 dried fingers on a cord, visible to anyone who looked. He did not take it off. It was not punishment. It was a record. He would carry it as long as he lived, because the people of those streets deserved to see it on the man who had taken what could never be given back. One morning, he turned a corner and saw a woman sitting on the ground near a wall. Her face was white. Her breathing was hard. A baby was not coming easily. An old woman knelt beside her, murmuring. Angulimala stopped. How much living beings suffer. The thought came quietly, without anything hard in it, just something open. Every person he had killed had come into the world the same way, through fear and hope and pain. He stood there a long moment. Then he went to find the Buddha. Angulimala sat before the Buddha and said,
Lord, this morning, I saw a woman having a very difficult birth. I thought how much living beings suffer.
The Buddha said,
Go to that woman, Angulimala, and say, Sister, since I was born in the noble birth, I do not recall ever intentionally taking the life of a living being. By this truth, may you be well, and may your baby be well.
Angulimala said,
But Lord, would that not be a lie? I have intentionally killed many living beings.
The Buddha said,
Then say it this way, Angulimala, since I was born in the noble birth.
He rose and went back through the city. The woman was still there. Angulimala knelt down beside her. She opened her eyes, and fear crossed her face. He lowered his head and spoke.
Sister, since I was born in the noble birth, I do not recall ever intentionally taking the life of a living being. By this truth may you be well, and may your baby be well.
A short time later, a baby cried. He sat there without moving for a long time. 999 fingers rested against his chest. He was not going to pretend those people had not been real. The noble birth had not erased Ahicaka, and it had not erased Angulimala. It had added one thing. A man who could kneel in a street and offer the only clean thing he had left, the truth of who he was now. That night, alone in the forest, words came to him. A person who was once careless, but later becomes careful, lights up the world like the moon coming out from behind the clouds. A person whose bad actions are covered over by good ones lights up the world like the moon coming out from behind the clouds. He held the necklace in both hands until the forest was completely still. Venerable Angulimala became an arahant before the night was over, fully free, with nothing left to cling to and nothing left to fear. The man who had killed 999 people, the man who nearly killed his own mother, the man who stood in the street while tiles and sticks hit him and did not raise his arms, the man who knelt beside a woman in labor and offered the only thing he had left. He had stopped completely, at last. This story is drawn from the Buddhist scriptures, including the Pali Canon, ancient commentaries, and Mahayana sutras. The words of the Buddha have not been changed.